Most of us know that keep your head down is pretty poor advice for the most part. What I would like to add to that is also that you don't need to keep your head still or forward in your stance. You don't need to keep it over top of where the ball is as you make your turn. So as someone who's had some neck issues in the past, someone who's struggled with taking the club, at times too much up, over rotating, I've never really looked specifically at how you could let your range of motion extend in the backswing, meaning you could make a better turn, a shallower turn, if you can open up a little bit of range of motion in the head, or more or less where the neck and head are moving in the backswing. So I'm going to make a couple swings for you. First one will be me really trying to keep the head still over the ball, so not really letting it move laterally or not letting my eyes or face orientation change in the backswing. So if we watch the face on view, head's going to pretty much stay inside of that circle. The orientation of the eyes and face will pretty much stay right at the ball. But what we will notice is the tendency to tilt the spine a little bit back towards the target, have the hips tilted a little bit back towards the target, at times get a little over-rotated with the trail side, and lose a bit of structure in the hands in an effort to kind of get the club back there, because we sort of are restricting how much we can turn by keeping that head oriented exactly the same as it was when we set up. So is it impossible to make a good backswing and a good swing with your head staying very still? Obviously not, but I do think it would require a pretty good amount of flexibility in the neck and maybe in the shoulder that I just don't think most people have, or if they have it, they don't have that habit from a young age, and in the golf swing it would be unlikely that they'd be able to make that good of a turn without letting the head have some movement to it. So the type of movement that I'm talking about, it wouldn't just be sending your head way off the ball or up or away or something all that messy. A slight bit of lateral, but more so the orientation of your face. Feel that you take the orientation of your face slightly back towards what would be a trail-facing camera. So away from the target, I want to let my face slightly move that way in the backswing. Really opens up my turn. Now, you do have to be aware that your field of vision, the way you perceive the ball, will change a little bit when you change your head position. That's why it's going to require some practice. Most people, the minute their view of the ball changes, they kind of panic and they kind of lock the head in. You're going to have to practice with it a little bit to let the head move a little bit further. Let me hit you one and show you what I mean. So not a perfect shot, obviously, but a couple miles an hour faster, not quite as steep in the angle of attack, path a little bit more from the inside. And that one felt pretty good as well. So let's have a look at the cameras. Okay, so two swings here, a little bit restricted with the head on the right. We're going to let the head move a little bit on the left. You'll watch how the swing on the right gets really steep and kind of buried with the shoulder under the chin very early, whereas on the left we got some freedom there. We can make a much better turn. Loss of hand structure at the top over here, because in my perception feels like I need to swing longer to get the club back there, when in fact I really didn't. You can see the spine is tilted towards the target, hips are tilted that way. On this side we have a little bit of the opposite orientation. We've got a little bit of angle between the upper body and the trail leg, whereas here it more or less just flows straight up. And what you'll notice when we zoom right in is just there's going to be a tiny little bit of motion that way of the head, and the eyes, which are pointed here, are going to just move a little bit there. Just a slight bit of both. You can actually see my back here because I've made a much better turn. Now obviously when we zoom in, you can see there's quite a big difference there, not just to the orientation of the head, but the quality of the shoulder turn, even the hand structure and position, arm swing. And that is literally just for me changing a little bit of how my head moves as I take the club back. So you can really see in detail there how much difference it makes when I just barely let this, and I think of it more as where my face is pointing. Face pointing a little bit back towards really this camera right here that I've set up. Obviously not all the way back to the computer there, that would be too much, but I'm just letting it point a little bit more here than here. The slight bit of lateral motion I'm not consciously thinking about. I think that will just happen as a result of flowing it this way. And I will say, club head speed wise, that is opening it up quite a bit for me, and I don't feel the need to really push on it. I don't feel any pinching in my neck. It just feels like a much freer motion. and it feels like I'm nicely centered behind the ball at impact. I don't feel like I'm ahead of it, which I often do, where, as I said, you're either gonna have to kind of chop across it, or you're gonna dump it behind you and try to save it with your hands. Now, when we start to get a longer club in our hands, like a fairway wood here, and I'll hit a couple drivers after, this motion will make it even easier for you to hit these clubs. It's gonna make a big difference on the irons, even the wedges, but when it comes to a long club, you really cannot be keeping your head buried and forward, turning up this way, and hitting a long club effectively. Yeah, feels nice. So what it feels like for me hitting this little 5-wood here is just a very easy time delivering the face square, making pretty good contact. I don't feel like I have to use my hands quickly at impact to square the club up, just already in a good position. Now, driver is the only club in the bag that we actually want to hit upwards on. If we are turning the way we were at the beginning of the video with the head staying forward, the only way to get up on the ball from here would be to lean back, hang back, maybe dump the hands under, artificially swinging up on it. Yes, you can produce it at times. You're not going to be a consistent driver of the ball. So let's make that same motion with the head, turn a little bit better behind it. That's pretty good. Now with driver, my tendency will be to hit a lot of pulls, low pulls, and high blocks. Again, because I was in this position where I kind of had to save it in the downswing. As long as I'm exaggerating this kind of face and head orientation enough, I'm starting to see the ball just take off much more on line. It has an appropriate amount of launch on it. I don't have to help it up in the air. However, you will have to push yourself a little harder with the driver, kind of like any drill, but really in this case, as your head starts to change a little bit of the view like we talked about, you're going to panic a little bit when you feel like you can't see the ball quite as well. Something to get used to. Obviously, I can still see the ball. It's just not the exact same viewpoint that I had when I addressed the ball. All right, let's step on a couple here just for fun. Let that speed up a little bit. For me, when I'm turning better with the driver, I feel comfortable swinging faster. When I get myself in a bad spot, I kind of feel like it's a little bit flinchy on the downswing. You feel like you got a lot of work to do to actually square the face up, which a lot of people wonder, okay, I swing 90 miles an hour with my 7-iron. How come I only swing driver at 101? If you're in a bad spot, your brain will throw the brakes on to avoid hitting the ball sideways. Often what I find from a speed production standpoint, the biggest leakages come from technical issues. So if you pick the driver up and all of a sudden you got no club head speed, this might be one of the reasons why. Last thing I'll say, don't be afraid to exaggerate it. I almost felt like I was going to lose sight of the ball there. I'm just practicing here. Get comfortable with it. Obviously, you can still see the ball. It's just a different part of your eye that the sight is coming out of. It's going to look a little bit different. When I push myself to do it, flight comes higher, draw comes back, speed comes up.